Welcome back to Max Out, everybody. It's Ed Mylett. I'm so excited about today's show because we're going to talk about all kinds of different stuff, but primarily today, we're going to focus on your health, on your wellness, on you getting lean and clean. And the man to my right looks very familiar to you. For those of you that are watching this on the YouTube version, he's a New York Times best-selling author of like a bazillion different books. And if our on-camera conversation is anywhere near as good as the off-camera, today's going to be magic. So this is Dr. Ian Smith. Thanks, you for being here.
I appreciate you having me.
It's going to be awesome. So we could go everywhere.
Anywhere you want.
Because you've written about so many different things. His newest book, by the way, is Clean and Lean. And I got to tell you, probably the number one question that I'm getting asked from my audience regularly is, what do I know about intermittent fasting? Okay, which is absolutely nothing. And so,
you know why guys are asking you that?
Why? Yeah.
Because how good you look.
Oh, thank you.
No. Seriously.
Thank you.
You're a very fit. I looked at you're a very fit-looking guy, and people know that IF is something that people who are into fitness, that they know that kind of stuff. They're assuming that, and it's not difficult to explain right now, but you look like a guy who would be a master of that kind of concept.
Thank you, and I'm not, and by the way, this is coming, if we're on YouTube, this is a 50-year-old man. Probably the most shocking thing was that, I swear, I'm looking at your stuff, I'm like, he's 50? Yeah. I look 20 years older than this man.
Blacks on crack.
Is that what it is?
Yes, yeah,
no, I don't have any of that going for me, unfortunately. So I'm assuming some of it, though, is because you're such a fascinating man from where you grew up to your education, and we're gonna go there in a little bit, but if I don't get to intermittent fasting first, people are gonna be really frustrated with me. So tell me a little bit about it. There's really two types also from what I was reading, right? What can you tell us about it?
Let's say what intermittent fasting is.
Okay.
It's not starvation. Okay. People see the word fasting and they think that they're not going to eat for a long time.
Right.
It's intermittent, which means on and off fasting. So on and off eating. So basically you have two windows. You have a feeding window or an eating window. You will eat from this hour to this hour, all of your meals and snacks, and that's the only time you'll eat. Then you have what's called your fasting window. And this is why intermittent fasting works for a lot of things it works for. It works because your body needs energy all day. While you're sleeping, while you're talking, taking a shower, whatever, having sex, you need energy, okay? Your body typically will get the energy from the food that you eat, the calories.
Okay.
And your body stores calories in the form of glycogen, which is a glucose storage form, and fat. Fat is a storage form of energy. So when your body needs energy, it takes it from those calories you just ate or you ate a couple hours ago, or it takes it from your stores.
Okay.
If you aren't taking in fresh calories, your body still needs energy. So it says, where am I gonna go to get this energy? Well, the first thing it does is it goes into your liver and your muscles and takes out the glycogen. So it depletes those stores, the inventory, it knocks them all out.
Okay.
Now where do you go? You go to your fat. The body breaks down the fat, converts it to energy, and then you use it to do what you have to do. Now you don't know this is happening, by the way. This is happening obviously microscopically internally, but this is what fasting does. Fasting drives your body away from food energy into fat energy, melts the fat per se, and then you use it.
Okay.
So intermittent fasting has to work in the sense of you have to be very rigid about your times. And this is what I mean. If you have a feeding window, you have to stick to it. If you extend your feeding window into your fasting window, you're going to interrupt that fasting period. It's during that fasting period, during that period where you don't have energy, that your body's driving to your fat stores.
Okay.
Now, people say, well, what can I have during my fast? In my way, you can only have about 25 to 50 calories of a beverage. So maybe coffee. If you want to have some coffee or black coffee or some herbal tea, if the calorie count goes above about 50 calories, then you're going to switch from burning fat to going to the calories you're consuming.
Wow.
And we want to keep the body, the switch, we want to keep it into the fat direction.
Okay.
And that's why you don't what's called break the fast.
Okay.
So in my programs, and the last one, Clean and Lean, it's about clean eating with intermittent fasting.
Yep.
So how would you do it? Let's say, for example, you want to do a 12-hour fasting window.
Okay.
That means you're going to eat for 12 hours and fast for 12 hours. First, by the way, 12 hours is a long time to eat. I mean, it's a lot of time, So
do you believe it's a long time not to eat or a long time to eat?
I think it's a long time to eat. 12 hours.
Okay.
Right?
Because you could be sleeping potentially 8 of the other 12.
See, now there you go. So you got it already. So people say, but 12-hour fasting, guess what? If you slept for about 8 hours, that means just 2 hours before and 2 hours afterward that you're not eating. It's 4 hours really.
Okay.
Now, this is what you would do. This is what I think is the easiest way to do it. If you get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, don't start eating till 10. Do everything you normally do from 8 to 10. At 10 o'clock starts your feeding window.
Okay.
From 10 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night could be your feeding window, your eating window.
Yes.
Okay? And then at 10 at night, you fast.
Okay.
Wrap around. That's a 12-12 window.
Okay.
You can burn a lot of fat in that 12-hour fasting window.
We're gonna go to lean in a minute.
Yeah.
The reason is what's unique about your book. One is the detailed explanation of why intermittent fasting works, but most of my friends who do intermittent fasting are like, it's great because once I'm in that feeding window, I can eat all the crap I want to eat. That's what most people say, right? Like and I've had friends who have lost weight doing it that way, but you've sort of combined clean eating with the fasting. This is really important because people do say to me often, you must eat really clean. And I usually respond, yeah, but I'm not really sure that I know what the clean part of that means. So what is, and I want to stay on the fasting, but I actually just curious about this, like what by definition is clean eating for you?
Yes, clean eating means reducing the amount of processed foods or ingredients that you're consuming. It doesn't necessarily mean total elimination.
Okay.
It's difficult to not eat anything processed for a long period of time, right?
Yeah.
You can go a couple days, but it's almost very difficult. But processed ingredients, things that have been processed by manufacturers that started like this, and they add synthetic chemicals, preservatives, all these additives into the food, and you see this on the shelf. Mm-hmm. This process here, this thing here is called processing the food. And then you see the finished product. Things like, chips or, Pop-Tarts. All these things that do not look like how they came out of the ground or off the tree or walking around in the pasture, right?
Okay.
Now, to some degree, you're gonna have to do some processing, but it's the addition of all these synthetic chemicals. And by the way, I wish we had like a package of something to look at. You turn the back of a label of a food packaged item, and read what's in there.
Okay.
If it has more than 5 to 7 ingredients, it is highly unlikely that it's a clean food.
Okay, so 5 to 7 ingredients is probably processed.
There's some processed in there. That's the way it is.
Okay.
Because you can't have like 15, clean ingredients in one food. It just doesn't work that way.
Okay.
All the other stuff is, xanthan gum, blah, 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 you name it, right? Things you can't pronounce and don't even know what they are.
Why is it bad for you though? I hear this all the time, like you don't want stuff with a bunch of preservatives in it. Why is that necessarily bad for your body?
A couple things. First of all, it can, we think that it can have a deleterious effect on your hormones, okay? So these synthetic ingredients can disrupt your body's hormones and throw your hormones in a state of just panic, actually.
Okay.
So that's one reason. The other reason is that we believe that some of these synthetic sweeteners, for example, that some of these things actually can mess with your brain chemistries, right? Artificial sweeteners are 100 to 200 times sweeter than regular cane sugar. Sweeter. And so what happens is when you consume these artificial sweeteners, you have this dopamine response in your brain, which is pleasure, right? It's the pleasure reward pathway. So you eat all this sugar, your brain releases dopamine, the dopamine travels in your brain, it goes to your pleasure center and says, "Ooh, I feel good." So you know what I'm gonna do?
Again.
I'm gonna get more.
Yeah, again.
Right? Because it's like Pavlov's dog, right?
Yes,
So we keep going, it's a conditioned response. We keep going to it. So what happens is this: when you eat these synthetic sugars, particularly where I'm right now, when you eat these sugars, you crave more sugar.
Okay.
And more and more and more. And eventually, you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna get regular cane sugar.
Yeah.
And you're gonna consume it like crazy.
Do these, thank you for this, by the way, for my own edification, but
Sure.
so do these processed sugars have the same inflammatory effects in your body that you read about traditional sugars having?
Great question.
Yeah.
The answer is they're not 100% sure.
Okay.
So even though artificial sugars have been around for a very long time, and at least since I was a kid, I remember my mother used to eat like sweet and low and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So way before then, they have not done a lot of real good studies that really looks at the physiological impact. When I say physiological, I mean how the body operates internally. They haven't done really, really great studies. Some of it's political, by the way, because some people don't want you to do those studies, right? It's a big business, right?
Right.
But some of it is just that researchers in general kind of have not, they haven't gone hard into it to really really look at it. Now more studies are coming out saying, we have lab rat studies. So we have rat studies that show higher rates of cancer in some cases and things like that. But then again, the argument against that is that what happens in the lab doesn't always transfer to human beings. We're much more complicated than the lab animals. So we kind of extrapolate what could be happening in us.
But most people would say, why take the risk, right? I mean, is it? Do you think to some extent that this is economically driven, meaning that I've had people tell me, I want you to correct it if it's not true. It's sort of more expensive to eat cleaner. Is that a fallacy?
It's not a fallacy, but it's not as expensive as people think it is.
Okay.
Right? So let me go back to the sugar, for example. So I believe that the economics help drive why manufacturers put all this junk into food. Because these synthetic preservatives make the food more shelf stable.
Yes.
They can stay on the shelf longer before they spoil, and therefore a retailer can buy it and you can be on a Target shelf for 6 weeks, 8 weeks and be okay to give customers time to buy it, and the retailer doesn't lose money. So a big part of it is financial. The other part of it is that it's cheaper.
Right.
I mean, junk is cheaper. It's junk. Like, excuse the expression, but a junky car is not going to cost what it costs to buy a brand new Mercedes.
Correct. Yeah.
So manufacturers are putting junk into foods because it's cheaper to put junk into foods rather than keep the food whole and to farm it in a whole way, organic way. It doesn't have to be organic, it's a whole other conversation, but to farm it in a way where you're not putting all these pesticides and antibiotics and hormones in it, it's more difficult.
I never heard anybody talk about the hormone effect. That's really, really compelling. And I wonder, I'm not kidding, I do look at a dude like you and I'm like, I wonder if this guy's, for his age, got more growth hormone and testosterone still in his body because he's eating cleaner. I don't know. I wonder.
Well, like you said, when people ask you if you eat clean, I don't eat perfectly. In all of my books, the first thing I tell people is, I'm never going to ask you to eat perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, let's be realistic. I'm not perfect. I mean, I had Fat Burger yesterday.
You did?
I love Fat Burger.
Me too.
It's one of my joints.
Me too.
And so I'll have a burger. Now, do I have Fat Burger? I have it maybe once every couple months or whatever. Yeah. But I'm going to have it. When I go to New York, I'm going to have a slice of pizza. Yeah. It's a New York slice.
That's so good to hear, by the way. Like, I seriously, I think people need to hear that because I think I have this thing that I teach in my stuff too, that if whatever you're going to begin to do is not something you can maintain, someone hasn't worked out in 2 years, they're like, I'm going to train for 2.5 hours. I'm like, no, go for 30 minutes, get a workout in. Am I right? And so it's so important that you're hearing what Dr. Smith is saying, that it's got to be something you can maintain. You can have a piece of pizza, right? You can have a piece of cake. It's okay. I do too. I want everybody to know that.
Yes. On my Instagram page, go to my Instagram page at Dr. Ian Smith, spell the doctor out, I-A-N Smith. You'll see. I'll post pizza. I'll post, like, for example, I'll post at the Chicago Bulls game. I'll have like a rainbow cake. Now, how often do I have it? The cake is this big.
Right.
But I'm gonna eat maybe...
That's what I do.
Yeah, like 3 or 4, and I'm good.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
I don't deprive myself, I'm good. And I'll post it to let people know, listen, how can you live life?
Right.
People say, I don't eat carbs. What are you talking about?
Of course you do.
Of course you do.
Right.
And by the way, the number one fuel source for your brain is glucose, is carbs.
Okay.
You need carbs more than any macronutrient. Fat, protein, carbs, you need carbs the most because it's fuel source for the body. Now, the issue is the right carbs. Okay. Right? So when people come to me and say, oh, I'm following a no-carb diet, I look at them like, why? Because you read it in People magazine?
So your energy level is zip all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
What do marathon runners do the night before a marathon?
Carb up.
They carb up.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, you need carbs. So my whole point is that I think that people have to have a better understanding, when they're trying to do better, and people want to do better, by the way.
Sure.
One thing, I was in a meeting yesterday, I said to the guy, I don't think people who make decisions at the top of the food chain understand that the guys at the bottom, they really want to do better.
Yes.
Some of them don't know how to do better. They may lack a little willpower. But who walks around and says, I want to be 400 pounds overweight and I can't tie my shoes, I can't walk up steps without getting winning? Nobody. No one wants to live like that.
I totally agree with you. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. If you'd like more, click the videos right here. They're exactly what you need to see next. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and become a part of the Max Out community. And tell me what you think about the videos in the comments below. I read all of them every week, and I select winners that get all kinds of prizes, gear, coaching calls with me. Make a comment.